Welcome back to Green Disruptors, the podcast where we meet the minds rethinking how we live, build, and do business on a changing planet. Today, I'm joined by Connor, co-founder of Rubbish Ideas, a circular economy organization designing real-world solutions to some of our toughest sustainability challenges. From waste management at festivals to data-driven carbon tracking, Connor and his team are proving that one man's rubbish can be another's innovation blueprint. In this episode, we explore how to communicate sustainability without guilt, how small experiments can scale into citywide systems, and why imperfection might just be the key to progress. Hey, Brian, thanks for joining us on Green Disruptors today.
Thanks, Megan. Happy to be here.
Yeah, tell everybody where you are in the world.
I am in a soundproof phone booth in Tukwila, Washington, just south of Seattle, close enough that when the fire department shows up for reasons I won't go into, they're not sure if they're in Seattle or where they're at. So right on the border.
Nice. It could be an interesting rabbit hole, but we won't go there. So,
See how it goes.
tell us about your personal background and then how that links eventually with Avalanche.
Yeah, very tentatively. So my background's pretty weird. I started out after school in biomedical engineering, and then I worked in a labor union on roads and bridges, and thought I need to finish this engineering degree. I actually got my degree in ocean engineering. I was looking for an area that had a deep need for people in a tough environment. I did, and can I get experts that are properly motivated with the right kind of background and like tolerance for ambiguity to be able to deliver. And so I was building teams there, and through a combination of wanting to do something different and being deeply attracted to the growth in fusion, happened to be talking to my co-founder about it, who is a computational physicist, specialty in turbulence modeling, and which is a lot like some of the plasma problems that fusion has been dealing with. So we spent 3 years, kind of nights and weekends, talking about how to do it, and got to a solution, or a potential solution, family of solutions that I was really excited about, he was excited about, and it turns out others were too. So we
Okay,
started
so
Avalanche.
back up a few steps. And for those of us who need a review from high school science, tell us just a really fast recap of fission versus fusion.
Yeah, it's great. So fission is, if you hear the word nuclear, you probably think fission. And fission and fusion are both trying to do the same thing, but in very, very different ways. So when we talk about energy crisis or energy, like very often there's the generation of the energy and there's the storage of the energy. And for chemicals like chemical fuels like hydrocarbons, like oil and gas, we it is both the source and it's the storage medium. So we pull it out of the ground. It's got a lot of a lot of energy stored in chemical bonds that we break through burning, and we harvest the energy out of them. And it's worked pretty good for us so far. And there's some negative effects that you might be aware of. And so we're looking for something better. What is a better source or storage medium? A source might be solar, but it doesn't really store it. And then so you need the long duration storage. So that's why it's not the solution for everything there. Nuclear is very, very interesting as it stores the energy in the strong atomic force at the center of the nucleus. And it has millions of times more energy than a chemical bond. Um, and so fission takes a very, very large atom, like uranium, and it breaks it. And when it breaks, it fires off particles that can break other ones. And it can create this chain reaction, and it releases energy that can be very, very useful. And it's great because you get this chain reaction. You almost have to stop it. You hear about control rods, and it's like shielding, and like
Right.
be very, very careful with this stuff because it can release that energy really, really fast. Fusion's the opposite. There's this weird thing. You can split atoms that are heavier than iron and get energy out of them in fission. but you have to fuse them or combine them if they're lighter than iron. So you can't split helium or carbon or anything like that and create energy. You have to fuse them together. And right at the middle, iron is where it stops. Where you might have heard like a star will fuse hydrogen, and then it'll fuse helium, and then it'll fuse more and more until it gets to iron, and then it stops fusing. It can, somebody else will go into that. It doesn't. It won't harvest energy. So fusion, we're taking really really light elements and slamming them together. And so
Okay.
if you get it hot enough, high enough energy, you can overcome the force that keeps them apart. And if you then have it dense enough and you do it for a long enough period of time, you can get energy out of it. And so for us, it means manipulating a plasma. And it's a tough nut to crack. So that's what we're doing in fusion. And a compact device is manipulating hydrogen isotopes to get them hot enough, dense enough, long enough.
Thank you. That was very helpful. And I'm picturing my my high school science teachers, and I'm like, I did learn this at some point. It definitely like went out the other way eventually. But so why do this? Why do we need it? And what kinds of problems are you hoping to solve by this specific solution?
Yeah. So I mean, the first one I touched on is extremely high energy density. Um, a lot more than hydrocarbons. And it also acts as a way to store the energy. It's that energy's in those atomic bonds already. Why versus fission? So fission is you've got to mine this stuff. You've got to refine, like uranium.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a fan of fission. I think it belongs in the suite of tools you use for energy. But it requires a lot of protection because it can be misused and it has very, very long radioactive components, or when it breaks down, they last for a long time, and you've got to control them. And they can do some nasty stuff, which it has worked its way into popular conscience. Some things your body's like, oh, I should attach that to my bones, and it's radioactive, and it's like that's not good. So we have to really, really make sure all those products are safely taken care of, and I think there's ways to do that. But also, if you get that material, you can make a bomb out of it because it can have this chain reaction. And that's something we're very interested in keeping controlled. So, um, and there's regulatory processes around that have been um, extremely difficult for that industry if you look at the history of it. So,
Yeah.
the cost, the handling, the safety aspects is all challenges there. And then I think with the exception of a few fission powered submarines, they're going to be limited to, large civil projects. So fission does not have the same regulatory kind of concerns. Um, if you rupture this plasma is like in a vacuum. I think a star in a bottle or star in a jar is a kind of good way to mentally manage this picture. So you've got the sun is up in a vacuum, deep vacuum. It's not touching any walls of anything, and it burns there, and we harvest the energy, right now everywhere. And so we want to replicate the similar kind of physics in a device, and we have to pull out all the neutral gases so you get or most of them. So you get a really good vacuum, and then you manipulate that plasma in the center there. So if you break it, if you shoot it, if a hurricane goes through it, it kills the process immediately because you have to keep the conditions so perfect. If air leaks in there, it shorts the whole thing out and it stops. So it's very, very different from fission in that way. Um, a thing that we're excited about is not just replacing power plants, but if you can make them small enough, you can change capabilities completely. So if somebody turned on a fusion plant right now, it's not going to change the way we live. Right now they're going to be targeting basically competitive grid power prices.
Mm-hmm.
And when you flip on a switch, you're not going to, we've got fusion power when you notice the lights. It's just, you
It's
just have
so special.
electricity. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, like you're going to read the article and maybe you'll be excited about it because humanity's been trying to crack it for a while. But if you were able to basically take fusion would act as a battery that would last years. So let's say you put it in like a shipping container, or sorry, like a cargo ship.
Okay.
that's
Yeah.
transporting stuff. Instead of it having to burn, they use something bunker fuel. It's basically like asphalt and a lot of smoke. You don't usually see it. They don't let you do it in ports, but it's very, very polluting. So you cut that, it's clean emissions, and then you go to your other port and you're not planning your stops based on your fuel. You're not sitting in line
Yeah.
for the fuel. You don't have to make your stops based on the infrastructure or the time behind it. You just run and you schedule out 3 years in advance by changing out, a critical part on your fusion device. So smaller fusion is really, really interesting for those.
Yeah.
Um, that's a big case, but we've got interest in space. You've only got so much solar. You can only pack up, origami
Right.
can only take you so far in packaging that down. Um, Navy, military, Arctic, islanded communities that don't have power. Those are the things that we're excited about because there's not many options. They'll run a diesel generator and have ice trucking roads to bring it and stuff like that. So that's what we're excited about. That's a place we'd want to start power wise because it's worth more and early devices are going to cost more until we get the manufacturing and mass manufacturing down.
Yeah. Okay. So, in terms of the technology development, where are you at?
This is, I think, a problem that has plagued Fusion is that there's this notion that there is a roadmap you could lay out and there's 6 steps for Fusion and everybody compares. Are you on step, 2 or 4 or something like that? And it's really, really different. It's probably more like somebody building a blimp and somebody a jet and somebody a helicopter. And they're like, what step are you? And it's like, well, they're, you know, we're getting closer, but it's hard to compare those. So without getting really, really technical, for our device, the reason, um, one of the key things that we are doing to make our device small is really, really, really high voltage in a small space. So you can kind of imagine, like high voltage is a quick way of saying it, but it's really high electrostatic field gradient. And what that basically means is you can imagine getting your a plug closer and closer to an outlet, and once you get close enough, it might like spark. And that's because that field gradient's getting steeper and steeper. You got a high voltage, you got a not, a zero voltage. And as you get closer and closer, it'll start to, want to jump. And so your outlet is at 120 volts in the US and roughly. And what we needed to do is get north of 300,000 volts.
Oh, wow.
So the voltage is
Yeah.
high, but we also needed it over 2.5 inches. So you imagine going higher and higher, it's going to want to arc. And so being able to keep it tame and not arc and everything stable at those really, really high potentials is tough. And then you don't want it to take a lot of power. Imagine all these generators keeping it at that voltage. And it's like, that means I'll have to generate that much more power to be
Right.
able to do it. So that's a huge one for us. So that voltage. But then it comes down to really 3 things. It's the energy or the temperature, the density, and the confinement time. Over the last couple years, it's been confinement time, getting it longer and longer. And now we're on a campaign. There's little steps along the way. You might have heard of like a plasma instability. Imagine you see these pictures of the sun and you see these plasma arcs, these huge arcs coming off it. It's kind of like that. You're going to have these instabilities that will flash out and they can damage the device. They also, when they connect to the outside, it can arc. It'll stop everything. So we get to these regimes and we have to calm everything down and find a way to do it. And so we are in at a critical milestone for our company, our last technical milestone, which is getting to a density by smoothing out a instability. And it's probably best understood as like the washing machine instability. Nobody calls it that, but if you all your like on a vertical washing machine, all your clothes go to one side and it sloshes back and forth and rattles the thing to death.
Yeah.
That's basically where we got our density to, and we've got that instability we're working through now. So not the crispest answer of where we're at there.
No, that
Um,
makes sense. So I guess I might have to ask you to do some future predicting right now, which, we'll have another conversation when all this actually happens. But what does a potential go to market strategy look like for a device like this? Like you're going to go after, large scale, like shipping containers, there's some military usages. Like
Hmm.
what's the plan, I guess?
Um, there is, man, fusion's such a pain. Well, a part of it's just like in the storytelling. Like anytime I use an analogy, if you're developing a car or a plane, you're doing air travel or ground travel, and you make it last longer, and you make it more comfortable, and you make it more reliable, and it's still always the same thing.
Right.
And fusion, for us, our plan has been to use a product that it makes in the fusion process makes neutrons when we're fusing the certain fuel. And neutrons are useful for doing a variety of different things. So that's our first go to market. I'm not going to talk about it because it's too complex right now. We'll stick to power. So that truly is the caterpillar stage of our story. The butterfly
Okay,
stage is
gotcha.
power that everybody wants to get to. So as we optimize it up to power, we go through the neutron markets. But the first stop for us is DoD. So DoD has the greatest need, the capability, that kind of asymmetric capability where you aren't chasing somebody else and manufacturing a whole bunch of stuff. You flex, you say, we've got this greater capability, and then you can prevent a lot of things by just being strong and having greater capabilities. So it's also good when you are early production. Your first unit's hand built, more expensive, not optimized, not necessarily made for manufacturing, just made to work. They cost a lot more. Your
Sure.
production rate's low. So the interest right now is space is very, very interested in that, and subsea. So subsea is a really interesting place. You've probably heard of sonar. And the
Mm-hmm.
reason you hear about sonar is an acoustic wave, because all the other things we use for communication, lasers and electromagnetic communication, microwave or radio, it's all just absorbed by the water.
Yeah.
So there's two races. One to detect things under the water there, and the other is like to stay undetected under the water. And to stay undetected means you have to have power for a long time. And so if you want to monitor all the threats in the ocean, you want to stay underwater and not let people know that you're looking there, that you're staying there. So those are probably the first ones with the greatest capability needs that are known in public, and it follows a good model of high tech stuff like uh, MRIs, solar power. This all started with a defense need early on, GPS, a bunch of stuff like that. So
Which
we're working with
means
those
that
early on.
that's not the end goal. That's just the best market to start in because of initial costs
Yeah,
and, the fact that you haven't yet optimized the manufacturing process, but getting a few, you know, like government contracts in that allows you to then continue research and development and optimization of the process.
yeah, I think that's, there's this naive perspective I had younger, and I'd heard this phrase, build a better mousetrap and the world will beat its path to your door, which is an absolute lie. You have to take steps all along the way. You've got to build trust. You got to deliver on that. You got to generate revenue. You got to generate that excitement and that trust and build it as you scale. And you can't just jump straight to mass manufacturing. So how do you keep everything alive in the process? I do believe in defense. I think a strong defense keeps us out of war. But I got excited about it by having, four kids and being from Alaska and seeing, salmon have heart attacks in a river that didn't have as much water, that was getting too warm. I got excited about it when I work long hours on something, which is hard for me not to do when I'm excited about it. And I'm strapping filters to the back of box fans because there's these uncontrolled wildfires. And, I want to have, I'm excited about the next generation. I'm excited about the world my kids get. And, if we fix it or not, I want to spend my time working, doing the best I can to make that better. So
Absolutely.
I believe in all those things. Um, I don't think I would have gotten into it just from a defense perspective.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, honestly, that just kind of is a strategy that makes sense, and they do have those needs, and it would be much better to supply internally, you know. Um, but anyway,
Yes,
so
100%.
yeah, I don't even know how that works, but uh, I was gonna ask, what's maybe, I feel like it's unfair to ask this, but like, do you have a goal timeline in your mind?
Yesterday. Yeah.
Heard that
Yeah,
before.
I know. And it's like tough. I'll tell you, there's the science is not as well understood as everybody would like it to be or like you to
Hmm.
believe it to be. Um, and most of our endeavors that you see are have a lot better, a lot more publications, a lot more grounded science, a lot more to work on there. So there's lots of times building something new, you got to live in ambiguity, and you got to
Yeah.
have a lot more resilience living through ambiguity here. That said, with the scale of our device, makes it nice to predict some short turnarounds for engineering. So we've had over 70 iterations of the device.
Mm. Wow.
And, we've anchored some publications and said, yep, that's good. And some other data we were relying on, we said, nope, I actually don't think that's good anymore. I think we've proven that that was not true. We've got a schedule that has a fog of war. The near term's very clear. The further out, it's a little more foggy, but
Yeah.
2 years will be into the device, um, a prototype that should be showing Q greater than 1 testing. Q greater than 1 is where it makes more energy than it takes to run.
Thanks
So
for
imagine a
clarifying that. Yeah.
device, you plug it into the wall, you get the thing start working, you optimize it, you tweak it over years, if you can imagine this time lapse. And at some point, it's like, whoa, it's making as much as it's producing. And you quickly unplug it from the wall and stick it into itself. And it just keeps running. Now you optimize it a little bit more, and then a little light bulb turns on. You optimize it more, and now you've got a spaceship that's flying you through the solar
That was a
system.
good illustration. That made sense to me.
That's what we're trying to do. Q greater
Speaking
than
of
one's
which,
right when we can plug it into itself.
yeah. So anyone who's listening, go check out their website. It's avalanche dot, what is it?
AvalancheFusion.com.
avalanchefusion.com. Okay, so they have some really cool illustrations and live graphics and stuff on their website that I think do a really good job. And as far as website design goes, because I'm in marketing, it's a nice website.
Good.
So
Thank you for that
compliments to your
feedback.
team there. Yeah. But anyway, is there anything you want to kind of wrap up with what you, or maybe like what you could, if you could magically make the public understand something about what you guys are doing, what would it be? The one thing.
Oh, honestly, I think that the public, well, it's a little bit split. I've been shocked at how supportive the public is for fusion. The National Ignition Facility in California hit a fusion milestone a couple years ago. And I had my great aunt call me and she was like, "Was that you guys?" And I was like, first, I didn't know you had my phone number. Second, like, I didn't know you knew what I did and you're excited about fusion. Like, that's awesome. Um, I do think that as a society, there are not enough people that are, how do I want to say this, really supportive of the cutting edge. There's a lot of, I'll believe it when I see it. And
Sure.
we don't
Yeah.
get the future we want when we live like that. So I'm fortunate to be surrounded by people that are have this definitive optimism that says we will have the better future that we want if we work towards it. You have to, a bunch of you probably watch Magic School Bus. Like, what did she
Of
say? It's
course.
like, get messy, make mistakes, something like that. And the point there is like, you're going to have to make mistakes and you have to fight through those ambiguities to have the change that you want.
I was more thinking in terms of Kevin Costner. If you build it, they will come.
I'm
But
hoping. I'm hoping. I wouldn't be as leaning into marketing right now if that was the case. I I do believe. Let's see if this. Oh, it is in the right way. If you've ever watched Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy,
love,
there
yes.
is On the cover of the book, it says, "Don't panic." And our first art was "Don't panic." It was a big Hitchhiker's Guide thing. And in fact, the first swag you get is a pair of socks that says, like, look, this is going to be tough. One step at a time together. Don't panic. And I would say to all the founders out there, anybody in climate or pushing the edge there, is like, basically, it's like, you're going to have to be resilient and internal, external pressures, whatever they are, don't panic. And then I get to have little coffee cups like this
I love that.
show up. I don't know. Actually, I don't know when this showed up, and I suspect who made it. But that's like a vibe for everybody else. Is just like, one step at a time.
This made me think of a very psychology-based analogy between what you just said. I mean, energy is the problem we're trying to solve because we're trying to bring down CO2 emissions and all that. But really, like, our human energy is directly linked to what we end up doing to the environment. So everything you said about not panicking, it's like, we have energy, we have gifts. You just have to channel it in the right direction. Because if we're leading with either denial, which is not great, or like fear-based panic type decisions, then we kind of make the problem worse, or we don't solve it as fast as we need to. So,
Yep. Definitive optimism. It's like, look, it's going to be better because I'm going to make it so.
Right. But I'm participating as much as I'm, I mean, people like you, it's like your whole life. So
Yes.
high five. So anyway, this was so fun. I thank you for helping me understand something complex and for doing the work that, not that many people are qualified to do, because it's very technical. So
I'm not qualified for it either. I think most people aren't, though. I think it's attitude and some training, but I got a great team.
That's true too. Like, you can bring your one piece into the larger puzzle. And I've always just loved, people can do amazing things together they could never, ever do on their own. So
that's it. That's absolutely it. It's all about team. Well, thank you, Megan. Thanks for the time. And thanks for, weathering my long explanations.
Hey, my pleasure. This was fun. Thanks so much.
All right. See ya.
Okay.
Cheers.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Green Disruptors. If you enjoyed today's conversation with Connor from Rubbish Ideas, share this episode with a friend or colleague who's passionate about sustainability done smarter. You can follow Connor on LinkedIn to see more of his thoughtful takes on circular design and environmental impact, and learn more about their work at rubbishideas.com. Don't forget to subscribe to Green Disruptors wherever you get your podcasts, and join us next time as we highlight more pioneers driving the green transition forward.